Imagine for a moment that your heart is like the engine of your car. Powerful, intricate, and absolutely essential for everything else to function. Now, think about what happens if a fuel line gets clogged versus if the engine's wiring suddenly shorts out. The symptoms, the urgency, and the tools required to fix them are completely different. That's exactly the difference between a heart attack and cardiac arrest. Both are life-threatening, but they're not the same, and understanding that distinction can literally save lives. A heart attack is, in the simplest sense, a plumbing problem. It happens when blood flow to a part of the heart muscle is blocked. The heart is still beating, it's still doing its job, but it's being starved of oxygen. The blockage, usually caused by a buildup of cholesterol or a blood clot, prevents the vital nutrients from reaching the tissue. Over time, that part of the heart begins to die. That damage doesn't happen all at once. And here's where it becomes empowering. A heart attack often gives us warning signs. That tightness in the chest, pain radiating to the left arm or jaw, nausea, sweating, shortness of breath. These aren't just symptoms, they're the body's cry for help. Now contrast that with cardiac arrest. This is not a plumbing problem. It's electrical. The heart suddenly stops beating because the electrical signals that coordinate its rhythm go haywire. Ventricular fibrillation is a common culprit. The heart quivers uselessly instead of pumping blood. And when that happens, the person collapses instantly. There's no warning, no gradual discomfort, just sudden loss of consciousness. Within seconds, the brain and other vital organs stop receiving blood. Without immediate intervention, cardiac arrest is fatal. Why is this distinction so critical? Because the public often confuses the two. We use the terms interchangeably, even in the media, and that confusion costs precious time during an emergency. You might see someone collapse and think they're having a heart attack when really their heart has stopped beating. In that moment, what they need is an aspirin or a ride to the ER. They need CPR. They need someone to act quickly, to begin chest compressions, to restore circulation, to bring them back. This leads to something deeper. Our misunderstanding of medical emergencies doesn't just reflect a gap in knowledge. It reflects our disconnection from our own bodies. We live in a world that celebrates constant busyness, where listening to your body is often seen as weakness. But the body speaks in murmurs and in shouts. The quiet signals of chest discomfort during a heart attack are a chance to intervene early. The silence of a sudden collapse in cardiac arrest is a scream for immediate action. The key is awareness, and awareness starts with education. You don't have to be a doctor to recognize the difference. You just need to remember, a heart attack is a blockage. The heart is starved but still active. Cardiac arrest is a shutdown. The heart has stopped. One needs urgent medical attention, the other needs you, right then and there, to keep someone alive until help arrives. That's why I often say that learning CPR is one of the most selfless and powerful acts of modern citizenship. You might never use it, but if you do, it'll be the most important 5 minutes of your life and someone else's. But let's not stop at emergency readiness. Let's ask why this matters on a larger scale. Because underneath all of this is the truth that our hearts, both physically and metaphorically, are central to everything we do. They power our lives. They are the engines of our bodies, but they are also symbolic of our emotional and spiritual health. When we understand how they work, we care for them more intentionally. We begin to appreciate not just their strength, but their vulnerability. We stop ignoring warning signs. We pay attention to our stress levels, our diets, our sleep, and the emotional weight we carry every day. There's a reason we use the heart as a metaphor in every culture. It's not just a muscle, it's the rhythm of life. And knowing the difference between a blockage and an electrical failure is more than medical literacy, it's respect. Respect for the complexity of the human body, respect for the urgency of life, and perhaps most importantly, respect for the role each of us can play in healing, helping, and maybe even saving someone else. So if you remember nothing else from this talk, remember this. A heart attack is the warning. Cardiac arrest is the silence. One asks for help, the other demands action. Don't confuse the two. Recognize them, respond to them. Because in the space between those two moments, the blockage and the shutdown, lives are either lost or saved. Your heart and the hearts of those around you are counting on it. Let's take a moment to consider something most of us never think about until we're in the middle of a crisis. The rhythm of life itself, the beat of your heart. It's consistent, unconscious, automatic, and yet its interruption defines the most critical moments of survival. When we talk about the difference between a heart attack and cardiac arrest, it's not just about the why and the when. And nothing captures that more than understanding the timing and nature of their symptoms. A heart attack, though incredibly serious, usually gives us clues. It's the body's alarm system triggering gradually. You may feel a squeezing pressure in your chest. Maybe radiates to your left arm, your jaw, or even your back. Sometimes it's shortness of breath. Other times it's nausea, sweating, or overwhelming fatigue. These signs can appear hours, even days before the full event occurs. The body's trying to communicate to say, pay attention, something is wrong. Now compare that with cardiac arrest. The difference isn't just in the cause, it's in the pace. While a heart attack is often a crescendo of symptoms building to a climax, cardiac arrest is more like a light switch flipping off. One moment, everything seems fine. The next, the person collapses. No warning, no gradual onset. It is abrupt, total, and immediately life-threatening. Here's the nuance that many people miss. Cardiac arrest is not always the result of a heart attack, and not every heart attack leads to cardiac arrest. They can overlap, but they are not interchangeable. Think of it this way. A heart attack is a plumbing issue, a clog in the coronary arteries. Cardiac arrest is an electrical failure. The wiring goes haywire. And that distinction changes how we need to respond. The timing of symptoms tells us where we stand on the medical timeline. A heart attack gives us a window, minutes, sometimes hours, where intervention can prevent catastrophe. That's why we emphasize recognizing symptoms early and calling emergency services without delay. Denial is the most dangerous reaction to those early signals. Too many people talk themselves out of taking action. Maybe it's indigestion, they say, or it'll pass. But by the time it becomes undeniable, the window is already closing. Cardiac arrest doesn't offer that luxury. It's like a fire that starts in the walls, silent and hidden until the entire structure collapses. When it happens, the only thing that matters is what you do right now. Not in 5 minutes, not after making a phone call, now. And the only tools that work in that moment are CPR and a defibrillator. That's it. No supplement, no stretching, no waiting. That urgency should change how we prepare ourselves, not just physically, but mentally. The reality is we must treat heart health like we treat smoke in a building. The moment you smell it, you act, because waiting for the fire is too late. And if it breaks out, you don't grab a manual, you need to know your exit plan by heart. This is why understanding the timing of symptoms isn't just a medical exercise, it's a mindset. It's a philosophy of vigilance and respect for the body's signals. But let's go deeper. Why do we so often ignore the early signs? It's not always ignorance. It's often fear. Denial is a form of self-protection. We don't want to face what those symptoms might mean, so we minimize them. But what we don't realize is that ignoring discomfort doesn't make us stronger. It makes us vulnerable. Real strength comes from awareness and action. Think of the people you love. Wouldn't you want them to act at the first warning sign? To listen to their bodies and call for help before it's too late? Then extend that same compassion to yourself. You deserve the same urgency, the same care. Too often we put ourselves last, and the heart suffers in silence. Here's something practical to walk away with. If you or someone you're with experiences chest pain that lasts more than a few minutes or keeps coming back, assume it's a heart attack and call emergency services immediately. If they suddenly collapse, aren't breathing, and have no pulse, it's cardiac arrest. Start CPR immediately. Don't wait for confirmation, because seconds are the difference between life and loss. These moments aren't just medical. They're deeply human. They challenge us to respond, not with panic, but with clarity. Not with hesitation, but with courage. And that's the gift of knowledge. It empowers us to act, to save, to change the ending of someone's story, maybe even our own. So remember this, time doesn't just matter, it defines everything. Whether you're faced with warning signs or sudden collapse, what you do in those precious moments makes the difference between tragedy and survival. Act early, stay alert, and never underestimate the wisdom of your own body. It's always speaking. The question is, are we listening? Let's take a moment to reflect on something we often overlook in health discussions: the emotional response to crisis. When it comes to heart conditions like heart attacks and cardiac arrest, the science is essential, but so is our emotional literacy. Knowing what to do is only one side of the equation. Understanding how we respond in the moment, emotionally, instinctively, can be the true deciding factor between life and death. And here's the truth: most people freeze. Imagine someone suddenly collapsing in front of you. No breath, no pulse. That moment doesn't feel like a medical emergency. It feels like a nightmare. Your body fills with adrenaline, but your brain can't always keep up. You panic, you hesitate, you question whether you're capable. In those few precious seconds, your emotional state becomes just as critical as your knowledge. And that's why we need to talk about fear, paralysis, and the myth of someone else always stepping in. Cardiac arrest demands immediate action. CPR within minutes, a defibrillator within 5. If you wait for perfection, if you wait for certainty, you've already waited too long. People die not just because help was unavailable, but because fear delayed it. So let's talk about that fear, not to judge it, but to understand it. It's natural to feel overwhelmed, but fear must be managed, not obeyed. This is where preparation meets psychology. You'll rise to the occasion, you fall back on your training. That's why learning CPR isn't just about technique, it's about confidence. It rewires your instinctive response. It gives you emotional permission to act because you know how. It moves you from bystander to first responder in your own life. The truth is most people don't act during emergencies, not because they don't care, but because they don't trust themselves. Now let's step into the heart attack scenario. Symptoms start subtly. Maybe it's pressure in the chest. Maybe you feel dizzy or nauseated. Your body is telling you something, but your brain is fighting it. This can't be happening, you tell yourself. Or worse, it's probably nothing. And that delay, again, becomes dangerous. This time, it's not about saving someone else. It's about saving yourself. But the psychology is the same. Denial, minimization, fear of embarrassment. We're more worried about overreacting than we are about dying. And that mindset must shift. There's also another layer we need to address, the cultural stories we tell ourselves about what a heart emergency is supposed to look like. Hollywood shows us people clutching their chest and falling to the ground. But in reality, heart attacks often feel like indigestion, jaw discomfort, or even shoulder pain. Cardiac arrest, it often looks like someone fainted. So we don't act because it doesn't look dramatic enough. But health is not theater. Real emergencies don't always announce themselves with spectacle. Sometimes they whisper, and we must learn to hear them. All of this points to a deeper truth. Emotional readiness is a form of health literacy. It's the bridge between knowing what to do and actually doing it. It's the mindset of someone who doesn't just possess knowledge, but trusts themselves to use it when it counts. And that kind of readiness can be developed. Through education, yes, but also through visualization, awareness, and open conversation. Ask yourself, if someone collapsed next to you right now, would you know what to do? And more importantly, would you do it? That second question is everything. It speaks not only to your preparedness, but to your courage. And courage when it comes to health isn't about being fearless. It's about being willing to act despite fear. This is why we must normalize the discussion of heart health, not just in clinics or hospitals, but around kitchen tables, in community centers, and yes, even in our own minds. Because the more we talk about it, the more we train ourselves not to freeze. We move from fear to familiarity, from helplessness to action. Let's be clear. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have a medical degree. You just need the will to try. Even imperfect CPR is better than no CPR. Even a call for help made without total certainty is better than silence. The heart, after all, is resilient, but it needs your partnership, your awareness, your decisiveness. So here's the challenge I leave with you today. Don't just learn what a heart attack or cardiac arrest looks like. Practice seeing yourself respond. Visualize it. Talk about it. Teach your children. Tell your spouse. Rehearse, not because you expect a crisis, but because you respect the fragility of life. In those critical moments, action is what saves. And that action begins now with a choice to be emotionally prepared, to be informed, and to trust your ability to stand up in the face of fear. Because when a heart stops, the world stands still. But if you're ready, truly ready, you just might be the one to bring it back to life. Let's talk about recovery. Not just medical recovery, but emotional and lifestyle recovery after a heart event. This is the part people don't often talk about. After the hospital stay, after the defibrillators, after the urgent care, what comes next is just as important. Because what happens after the crisis ends is where transformation either begins or fades. Whether it's a heart attack or cardiac arrest, survival is only the first step. What really matters is how a person rebuilds their health, habits, and mindset moving forward. Too often we think of recovery as passive, like it's something that just happens while we rest. But true recovery is active. It's a process of rebuilding not just the heart, but the spirit, the identity, and the choices that define a healthy life. There's something many people don't realize. Surviving a heart event creates a new psychological identity. You're no longer the person you were before. There's a before and after, emotionally, mentally, and sometimes socially. And that shift can feel disorienting. Some people feel guilt. Others feel fear. Many feel vulnerable, like they're walking on a wire with no safety net. But these emotions are not a sign of weakness. They're part of the body's natural recalibration. And facing them honestly is the foundation of true healing. Now let's consider this. The habits that led someone to a heart emergency don't disappear just because they've had a scare. In fact, once the adrenaline of survival wears off, it's easy to fall back into the same behaviors. Why? Because habits are comfort zones. They're the brain's way of conserving energy. And recovery demands the opposite. It demands new routines, consistent effort, and above all, a new mindset. That's not easy, but it is necessary. Let me share something powerful. Research consistently shows that cardiac rehabilitation, structured recovery programs that include physical activity, nutritional counseling, and emotional support significantly reduce the chances of another event. Yet only a fraction of eligible patients complete them. Why? Sometimes it's access, but more often it's mindset. People feel fine again and think they don't, or they feel ashamed to go. Or they tell themselves they're too busy, but skipping recovery is like patching a leak without fixing the pipe. You may feel stable, but the underlying issue remains. Recovery also brings a philosophical question. Why was I given another chance? And that question, if taken seriously, can be the seed of a new life. Many survivors report a deep shift in their values. Less obsession with achievement, more attention to relationships. Less sugar, more movement. Less worry about the trivial, and more gratitude for the present moment. But this shift doesn't happen automatically. It requires intention, it requires reflection, it requires support. Family plays a crucial role here. Loved ones often feel helpless during the emergency, so they try to take control afterward. That can lead to conflict. Survivors may feel smothered. Caregivers may feel unappreciated. The answer is communication. Open, vulnerable conversations about fears, boundaries, and needs. Healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in relationship with ourselves and with others. And let's not forget the most underestimated tool of all, hope. Hope is not wishful thinking. It's a decision to believe that your future can be better than your past and that you have a role in making it so. Hope fuels discipline. It powers habit change. It gives meaning to the pain. When you believe that your life still has purpose, you treat it with more care. That belief that your life is still unfolding in meaningful ways is perhaps the most important medicine of all. I want you to imagine someone who's just survived a heart event. Picture them sitting in a chair at home, trying to make sense of what happened. They're tired, they're scared, they feel alone. Maybe that person is you, or maybe it's someone you love. Now imagine whispering this truth to them. This moment is not the end. It's the invitation to a new beginning. Because it is. Recovery isn't about returning to the life you had. It's about building the life you were meant to live. One decision, one breath, one heartbeat at a time. So here's my invitation. If you've survived something that should have ended you, don't go back to the habits that almost did. Choose forward. Choose different. Choose life with your eyes open and your heart engaged. Because a second chance is not a guarantee, it's a gift. And how you use it, that's your legacy. The crisis may have passed, but your most powerful days might still be ahead. Choose to meet them with strength, wisdom, and renewed purpose. And above all, keep your heart not just beating, but fully alive.